Hi, everybody. I'm going to put together a relatively quick video lecture on market segmentation. So here we go. So, 2019, you have a Nintendo Wii, an Xbox, a PlayStation, a Nintendo Switch. Which was the leading device sold in 2019? It was the Switch. Why? They found a group of gamers, young men and women, who wanted to be able to take their games mobile. And so they found a new market segment, a different group to target. So, what group of gamers is larger than teen boys? There's more of them? Surprising answer. Women over 50. Are they playing on consoles? No, they're playing on their phone. The smartphone, is the number one gaming device. So, just to kind of pique your interest a little bit, the average gamer is 34. 70% of gamers are age 18 or older. 60% of people play every day. 45% of gamers are women. So they're playing Candy Crush and other games that women like. 70% of parents believe video games have a positive influence. Maybe why do they think that? Strategy is probably a big thing. Got to figure things out. Socialization, and perhaps they're playing too, or they want to believe that it does have a positive aspect to it. Okay, Coca-Cola. Lots of different products, but we're going to focus on the first four there. So, traditional Coca-Cola in the red bottle. The green Coca-Cola, all right? So that's Coke with stevia, a natural artificial sweetener. Coca-Cola Zero, right? 0 calories. Diet Coke. So why do they have three different diet sodas, right? Especially, Coca-Cola Zero and Diet Coke. Well, traditionally, who drinks Diet Coke? Women. They're not afraid. They don't mind, taking a bottle of something that says diet. Do guys like diet products, especially if it's seen by other people? No. So Coca-Cola really came up with Coke Zero for guys. Because then they can drink it and it doesn't say, hey, I need to go on a diet and things like that. So again, taking their products and suiting different groups who want different strategies. All right, and so, there's a plethora of Bud and Bud Light products, but Bud Light, Bud Platinum, somehow it's better, and Bud Light Lime. And you even have Bud Light with grapefruit juice. And so forth. So Bud Light Lime, why did they come out with Bud Light Lime? Because of Corona, right? So either they were afraid of losing sales to Corona, people were switching or tending to buy Corona in place of Budweiser or Bud Light in certain circumstances, and or they wanted to keep, their own buyers, their own customers drinking, Bud Light Lime instead of buying Corona. Or perhaps, Bud Light Lime was less expensive and there are people who don't buy Corona because of the price. But again, taking this group of, creating different products to meet different needs in the marketplace. So this whole idea is called market segmentation and targeting, figuring out what segments we want to target. It's part of the general marketing strategy, which is often called STP, right? Segmentation, targeting, and positioning. And we're not going to cover positioning in this lecture, but we'll do it another time. So, what is market segmentation? Simply dividing a market into smaller segments, right? And the key thing is, hey, if you can use the same strategy for different types of people or different types of companies, then do so. But if each is better served with, a variation or a unique strategy, then you want to segment the market. You want to divide them up. Different strokes for different folks is the basic idea. All right? And, as we talked before, the same product can appeal to different people. So I talked with a brand manager from Activision, Call of Duty, and they segment their promotions by the game modes, whether it's a team game, a zombie, an individual, because different promotions will work better with different groups. Think of a Tesla, especially when they first came out. There could be 3 different segments of people who buy them. People who really believe in green products and the environment. Status. The first ones to S and whatever they were, they're expensive. $100,000, $80,000. Look at me. And on top of that, they're really fast because they have a powerful electric motor that accelerates much faster. Same product, but if you were advertising online, digitally, or in some type of periodical, a magazine, or on some type of television show, you'd probably be on different shows and have different ads. So, theoretically, benefits of segmentation. We do a better job serving people's needs. We provide more value. We can charge more. We'll make greater profit. Or even if we don't charge more people will buy us, so we'll have more sales, higher revenue, and higher profits. All right. We really know where our money's going and what we're trying to do because we've narrowed down our marketing to a specific group. And it's a really good way to try to find new markets. And there's lots of companies that have opened up new markets, but Under Armour, right? Football player on the University of Maryland. It's cold. Didn't have any type of gear, right? And can't wear cotton because if you sweat, it absorbs the water. Then you freeze your butt off when you stop moving. Wool, it's too itchy, right? Performance gear, right? Polyester. eBay. There are other auction sites at the same time too, but eBay is the only one survived. They are a major player. Don't forget them as an online e-commerce site. Airbnb, we all know about. Uber, HelloFresh, not the first, but probably the most successful meal kit. The first one was Blue Apron. So, thinking and trying to identify different markets can often lead you to develop new products for new markets. Okay, so the ideal segment, what is it? Well, for me, in my mind, I kind of see segmentation or the process of going through it as being a prospector for gold. And what you're really looking at is here you have this big group of people and you're looking to find, what do you really want to find? At least one segment where nobody's really doing a good job meeting their needs, right? And they may not even know that. We weren't crying out for smartphones or even cell phones, but they got developed because having easier and more constant communication is certainly something people would want. And that group has to be large enough for your organization, to reach the goals financially. So if you're thinking about opening up a brew house or a restaurant and you're looking for a location, you don't need a huge market. All right, because people maybe drive at most 15, 20, 30 minutes to get to your restaurant or your brew pub. But if you're a big company like Procter & Gamble or Unilever, you're going to want a much bigger market to justify the research and development, developing a new product, and all the marketing you need to do to be successful. And again, here are some examples. I'll just let you kind of go through these. We've talked about some of them in class, but they've all, originally started finding a market that they could go into where there was little or no competition. People weren't relatively happy. And the first one, just take, ESPN, right? There were sports on TV, right? But no one network was dedicated to it. And, they've become a huge success. So, how do we do this? All right, so there are 4 basic steps. Even though I have 2 ones there, but hey, what the heck? All right, so 1, you have to find a base of segmentation. And that really means, how are we going to chop this market up? How are we going to group them in a way that makes sense so we can find that segment where there's unmet needs, people aren't particularly, happy with the options they have, and it's big enough that we can, make the type of income and profit that we want. Once we're going to have that, or we think we have that, then we have to figure out who's in those segments. Who are those people? Then as we look at multiple segments, we have to figure out, all right, which ones are attractive enough for us to invest in? Which ones should we stay out of? And then finally, we have to come up with some way to think about how we're going to do that, how we're going to target them. So there are 4 steps, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so how is this market segmented? Leading deodorants in 2019. I couldn't find anything more recent. All right, so it's Dove for Men Plus Care, Secret, Degree Men, Dove Advanced Care, Secret Clinical Strength, Old Spice High Endurance, Old Spice Suave, Secret Outlast. So There's a couple of things, but the main one is what? It's by gender. Dove for women, Dove for men, Secrets for women, Degree for men, Dove Advanced Care. I don't know who that's probably for women. I don't use it. Secret is a woman's, right? Secret Outlast, Old Spice, guys. All right. Suave actually is not by gender, but more by price. All right. So, are there any real differences in these brands? Not in the active ingredients. They're the same. It's brand, name, fragrance, and perhaps application. So, that's one way to segment a market. It's really common. So there's a lot of ways. I'm not going to play the Super Bowl ad. You can watch it, but it's Dr. Squatch. All right, it's soap for men. All right, it's a quite an entertaining commercial, and become a fairly big online brand. Kind of surprising they spent all the money to $5 million plus to be on the Super Bowl. But anyway, so that gives you another way they're targeting a specific group. Oops, sorry. Okay, so here's how we do the basis. This is what I want to have right here. So the first one is demographic, right? And we know what demographics are. There's a whole ton, okay? And there's several of them right there for you, all right? Levi's even, right? Signature, I believe, is at Walmart. Levi's go to, their own stores and mainly department stores and more upscale retailers. The Vintage series goes for over $250 online for a pair of Levi's. All right, and I think Signature is different. There's another one within that for a different one for Target and a different one for Walmart, at least by brand name. So they're not in direct competition. All right, geography. All right, where do you sell more Subarus? All right, probably in states where there's a lot more snow and bad weather. If we were to come out with a breakfast menu for Popeyes, think about it. All right, every kind of basic breakfast menu's got to have some type of egg sandwich, hash browns, coffee, obviously, maybe a juice, and maybe something else. But it's really going to vary by region. What do you need down south? Well, Popeyes being chicken, they're probably going to have chicken and waffles, biscuits and gravy, grits. What are they going to have out in the Southwest? West Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Southern California, Colorado. Breakfast burritos, Tex-Mex influence. That's where, Mexican Americans tend to congregate out there. They've had a huge influence on culture, and so it extends to food. And we're going to make fun of Northern California, Portland, Oregon, up north to Seattle and Washington and stuff. What would be important to them? Probably more healthy foods. Quinoa, yogurts, kiwi, things that, high in antioxidants, low in calories, good for you. Midwest, my favorite. What would they want? Well, the Green Bay Packers are called the Cheeseheads. Why? Because it's a huge dairy and meat area. All right, Northern Europeans, a lot of them emigrated a while ago there, and so it's all sausages and steak and eggs and all things like that. My son went to Chicago, and he was in a nice area, had an apartment, and I'd walk around the area, and every block there was a hot dog restaurant and sausage restaurant. Just hot dogs and sausage. That's all they sold, and so forth. So you'd have to have meat. Northeast, we used to be bagels. Bagels are probably all over the place in most areas, but every group has different things because those different geographic regions really kind of have their own cultures. But you can do it by geography, and those are things that we're pretty aware of. Okay, so the next idea is psychographics, and that's not a very nice term, and it just means kind of anything in our head about how we think or feel or stuff. And it could be lifestyle, which we'll focus on. It could be personality, motives, and everything. And those things used to be tougher to do, especially personality, motive, different traits that people have, because it isn't that there aren't people out there and that they're not different segments, but prior to websites and e-commerce, Where do those people live? How do you find them? How do you target them? How do you do it in a way that's efficient with your money? So the thing that most marketers use is lifestyles. And usually the definition for lifestyles is something like the way in which we lead our life, modes of our behavior. Well, that's not really illuminating. It doesn't really tell you what a lifestyle is. So it's really, to me, it's the choices you make with your resources, how you spend them, how you use them. So it's what do you do with your time? What do you do with the money, how much you have, or other types of financial resources? And where do you put your effort? All right? And so we could argue that there are 4 types of students on campus by lifestyles. All right? And since you're not here to go through this with me, I'll just go ahead and say what they are. So the first one, we have a lot of athletes. I was an athlete in college. Played 2 sports. So our sports are really important. Sometimes it's more important than our academics. We're really time starved. We spend most of our time, practicing our sport, whether it's mandatory or volunteer. We have study halls that we have to go to. It's hard to get food sometimes if we come back from a late game or a late practice, and so forth. And then we have people who are more academically oriented. What's real important to them? Their GPA, their graduation, whether they're going to go get into a good graduate school, whether they're interested in their career and want to make sure that they get the job that they want, right? And they want to find places on campus where they can, study and meet with other groups and not be disturbed by other people. And then we have a social group, right? And of course, part of that is people who are in school and they spend most of their time partying and doing things like that. But it also includes, students who are on campus, and social organizations are real important. Many of you will have friends, for your life from people who are from college. I still do. I have like 5-6 people I could call up, and if I needed something, I could ask them, and so forth. So they might be in student government. They might be, organizing in a sorority or a fraternity or some type of organization. So it's that interaction is where they spend most of their time and everything. And then the last group, which is common at most schools, many schools, but especially at AIC, are commuters. And a commuter isn't just somebody who lives off campus. It's somebody whose most of their life revolves around something off of campus. So they're the person who maybe has an apartment in West Springfield, comes here, goes to school, goes to classes, eats if they have to, be here for lunch, and then they go back to their job, their family, their boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, their friends, whether they're living home or have their own place. And even they don't take much advantage of the resources at AIC because they're too busy and they're not interested. It doesn't fit them. So you have those 4 groups, all right? And so the question is, so why are they like really segments? So if the president wanted to improve the school, make it more attractive to incoming students and make existing students, more satisfied, going to spend $2 million. Is there one thing they could do that would please everybody? Probably not, right? Athletes would want more money, better facilities, better uniforms, maybe more travel to places in their preseason. People who are more academically oriented, right? Better technology in the classrooms, better professors, career guidance, maybe arrangements for mentors in industries that they want to go into, more internships availability, and so forth. Social people, they'd want to be able to do more things. We're halfway between Boston and New York. Is there bus services that take you there that school pays for? Even downtown Springfield. Is there a bus that will take you down there, or a shuttle will take you down there on a Friday night and then be available to pick people up at 11, 12, 1, or 2 o'clock? Are there any type of arrangements with all the other colleges nearby to kind of share social events? When was the last time a relatively big-name comedian or musician or singer was on campus? So that's important to a lot of people. All right. And then finally, commuters, they might want classes off campus, more online classes, a reduction in tuition because they're not using all those resources. Why should they pay those fees? And so forth. So there isn't really one thing. Dining hall, that might help. We did that. I don't know if it really made a big difference. Improving dorms, perhaps. But, so lifestyles, in this example, is a really good way to segment the market. But you have to pick and choose because oftentimes there's not one thing that will please everybody. And that's really the whole point of market segmentation. And there are some other examples there. There are more general lifestyles, but the way to think about lifestyles as a marketer is, okay, with respect to what my brand is or the service I'm providing, are there different ways which people engage in them? And it's not always by income. Blue collar could make them really good money, but blue collar people in rural areas, guys who hunt and fish, they probably have a $2,000-3,000 gas grill and a smoker and everything. Somebody in the suburbs may not. They can make the same amount of money. The one can make more than the other, but it isn't about how much money you make. You buy what you're interested in. And so, if you go to barbecueguys.com, you'll see how much money you can spend on a grill and a smoker. And most of those are being sold, to guys who want to be in charge, and like to have people over, and they're going to cook the meat and prepare it all and do all that kind of stuff. Other people, it's not as big a deal. They still have people over and they spend their money in other places. Same thing with vacations. Do you stay at a resort? Do you go camping? Do you have an RV? Do you have a big truck to pull a camper? Right? Do you like to go and, get into nature and do that? Do you like to do an Airbnb and go to some place and kind of really understand and get a feel for the culture? Those are all lifestyles. Okay, so I think that's enough of that. All right, so the third idea is behavioral segmentation. So we've looked at demographics, geography, all right, psychographics, we're focused on lifestyle. Behavioral segmentation is, hey, let's look at what people actually do. All right, and you can watch those ads, and that's, the first one you should be able to recognize who that person is, the main person in the ad doing the narrating. But the idea is usage rate. And it comes down to expression in marketing. It's not just marketing, it's really from economics and stuff. But hey, it's the 80-20 rule, or the Pareto principle. And in marketing, it's 80% of your sales come from 20% of your customers. And 20% of your sales come from 80% of customers. So the idea is there's heavy users, people who play a lot of games, all right, people who eat a certain amount of food, people go to Chick-fil-A all the time, or Chipotle, and there's another group who, they buy it occasionally, all right? And the idea is you're going to market differently to them. The 80%, the 20% that buy 80% of your stuff, they're your key customers. You can't lose them, right? They're putting the money in your pocket. So you need to, give them promotions, rewards, and all sorts of, things to keep them. The 20% that only buy, the 80% that only buy 20%, they're the light users. That's me with beer. I'd rather drink bourbon or wine. I'm not a heavy user of bourbon, but I only buy beer. I only drink beer that I didn't pay for because I'm not going to buy it for myself. The only time I drink is I go over to somebody's house, and that's kind of the drink to have there, right? But we do buy it when we have people over or in social situations and so forth. So all that stuff that would appeal to a heavy user doesn't appeal to me. I just want something that's kind of socially acceptable and that people are going to like and not feel, I'm not going to feel like I bought a crappy brand and people will think less of me. So the key for many companies, like Nintendo Wii did, is convert light users and non-users. What did Nintendo Wii do? Well, there was a whole bunch of families who had kids who didn't let their kids, especially younger kids, play video games because they were too violent. They didn't like them. And then Nintendo Wii came out with no violent games. And on top of that, they made it really easy for adults to play along with their kids. So it became like family fun. They could do, with the sticks, bowling and lots of different things, tennis or whatever those were. So they found a segment that nobody, was really catering to. And the year they came out with it, there was a new model of Xbox, there was a new release of Sony PlayStation, and Nintendo Wii outsold them all. As a matter of fact, they had to cut, supplies to the U.S. because they wanted to make sure Nintendo made sure they had enough globally. Now, Wii sells okay now, but they don't make a lot. They're really a software company, a gaming company. But then they hit it again, as we said in the beginning, with Switch. So they've been really good at finding, what are the needs that are underdeveloped, and then designing a product for it. All right, and so another example of this was, hey, Macy's. Macy's is still struggling, but was really struggling during the pandemic and right before, when department stores and mall traffic were way down, and they found that 5% of their customers, 5%, accounted for half their sales. So think about it. If you lose any of those customers at Nordstrom's or buying more stuff online at different places, you're in a lot of trouble. So they redid our whole reward program and really oriented toward heavy users, people who buy a lot, to really reward them, to not lose them. They couldn't afford to lose them. And then they've been working on trying to improve their e-commerce slowly. I think they've done an okay job, and getting new sales and try to develop other customers so they're not so reliant on a relatively small group. Okay. So, and then, now X, but formerly Twitter, 80% of the tweets came from 10% of the accounts. So I guess those people are influencers. I mean, this is probably coming during the political election from the last time, so that probably had a big deal with it. And, and so forth. Behavioral audience segmentation. So the products that follow you around the internet once you go and browse, and even if you buy and then you continually see digital ads for them, that's based on your behavior, on your shopping behavior. So, looking at what people actually do and then segmenting markets based on that behavior is very common. Okay, leading brands of toothpaste. 2019, this is from Statistica, which I don't know why they haven't updated, but we have Crest 3D White, Sensodyne Pro Enamel, Colgate Optic White, Sensodyne, Colgate, Colgate Total, Crest, Colgate Max Fresh, Crest Pro Health Advanced, Crest Pro Health. So how's that market segmented? Because one thing is all those toothpastes all have what? Fluoride. Isn't that basically the basic job of toothpaste? To prevent cavities? Yes, it is. So let's look a little closer. Crest 3D White, Colgate Optic White, right? Colgate Max Fresh, right? What additional benefits do they offer? It's social. People want to look good, want to have fresh breath, all right? And so, one way to segment markets is by what people want, right? So those people want fresh breath, all right? Sensodyne Pro Enamel, right? Sensodyne is for sensitive teeth and it protects your enamel. Sensodyne, all right? Colgate Total, all right? That's another one to protect your teeth and do all that stuff. Crest Pro Health Advanced, Crest Pro Health. Toothpaste is seen as more, we'll call it a medicine, okay, or a way to make sure your teeth are healthy, especially if you don't like going to the dentist or the hygienist and having them, drill, scale your teeth, whether they use a metal tool or the Cavitron, the one that squirts the water and everything. And so, they use that, all right? And Sensodyne is, obviously done very well, and they were not an early entrant into toothpaste. Colgate, Crest, all right? Basic toothpaste, name brand with a price. So a low price. So price is probably the most important thing in those. Yeah, I don't need all that other stuff. I don't want to spend too much money in toothpaste. Maybe our budget's tight, and so forth. So, in other words, markets are segmented, all right? There they are. by benefits. So it's called benefits sought. That we want different things, from different brands, or different people want different things from a brand, and we can segment the market that way. One way to think about it is price. I want a really good price. I want the best performance. I want an easy relation, right? I want a subscription service, right? Dollar Shave Club, Harry's, right? Gave them price and convenience. And, Dollar Shave Club got bought by Unilever for $1 billion. And Harry's is still around, doing well, and so forth. So there are many ways to kind of think about the benefits. And you could argue that almost all segments ultimately can be segmented by benefit sought. It's just oftentimes easier to identify them either through demographics, geography, lifestyle, or behavior. And there are other ways to segment markets on top of these, either within these categories or across, but these are really the main ones to try to think about, okay, how can I find a group of people large enough so we can, reach our, marketing and financial objectives where nobody is particularly happy or nobody's serving them at all. That's really what we're looking for. Okay, now, when you segment markets, it's kind of like doing a search at a big, clothing website or someplace like that. I don't like Amazon, but you can search through various attributes or features. So obviously in segmentation, it's just not one of those. You can have, hey, we're going to do it by gender, women, and we're going to do it by another one, maybe by income or age, right? And then we might do it by geography or by lifestyle, whether they're working or they're a homemaker and so forth. And so we can add these different kind of filters, if you want to think about it, to try to find a group where nobody's doing a really good job. Now, once we've gone through and kind of segmented the market, if you think about a big circle and kind of divided it up into segments, then we have to kind of identify who are these people in each of them. And so that's building a profile. And what's become really popular nowadays in marketing is to create a persona. And a persona is a fictional person or people that represents your ideal market segment, or in this case, the typical person in that market segment. And literally you build a profile. All right, here's Brandy Taylor. It says for shoes, and she says what job she has, how old she is, she's a receptionist, where she lives, what her motivations are. Okay, she's got narrow feet, that's in her profile, and all that kind of stuff there. And the reason personas have become really popular is you want to think of your customer, not as a bunch of statistics, all right, from a report. Okay, but as a person, and as you kind of have a more holistic, well-rounded view of that person, it helps you make better marketing decisions, especially in terms of marketing communications, any changes to the brand, and so forth, because you have a kind of a feel for the person. And the other big advantage is you can share that with not only other people in the marketing department, but other people who do any type of, customer facing. So customer service, research and development, market research. So they kind of understand who, our customer is, or who this type of customer is. So again, they can have more empathy if they're dealing with customer service problems. They can design better products because they have a better understanding of that person's, life. And I think the next page is just a couple more examples. And that's really it. Just a really good snapshot focused on your product, that situation, that lifestyle where your brand could be important to them. All right, now we got to figure out, okay, we got a bunch of segments. Yeah, you probably have an idea which ones are attractive, but okay, which ones are we willing to invest in? Which ones should we go after? Should we, either launch an existing product, rebrand it perhaps, or develop a new product for it, or expand our existing product? Brand into a new segment. So these are the five. I think there's five. Yeah, 5 different kind of criteria, things to look at to see whether or not it makes sense. There are other ways to do this, but these are probably the most common terms that you'll find. So one is a measurable. Can we figure out how big they are, right? How many are there? Okay. Well, it's hard to do segmentation without measuring. Substantial. Is it going to be worth it? Are there enough of them? Can we make enough money? Or we can always segment down and keep cutting that pie into smaller and smaller pieces and find, relatively small groups who haven't had their needs met very well, but if they're not big enough, it's not worth it. Accessible. Can we reach them easily and cost effectively? More of an issue, pre-internet, web, e-commerce, digital, social media, but still an issue. Can we reach them in a way? Can we reach them in a way where we can stand out from our competition? And then the next one is differentiable. Is there really meaningful differences? Right? Well, our segmentation, we might come up with that. Why does this one exist? So, without going into too much, sometimes you can do statistical analysis to say, hey, are these people really different? These two groups? And if you have enough people in those groups, very small differences will come back and be statistically significant. But it doesn't mean that, in real life, they really matter very much. So you just want to, this is like a double check, make sure that, hey, there's really some meaningful difference. And then an important one that's easy to, not follow is actionable. Can we exploit the differences between the segments? In other words, do we have a brand? Can we make the brand? Are we have enough money to develop the brand, and do we have enough money to do the marketing before we're successful? Right? So can we act on it? So we might find opportunities, but they may be such that, hey, if we go in there, we're going to attract a lot of other competition, and we don't have enough money to compete with them. So maybe it's not really a good segment for us because we're not good enough to perform it in a way where we can win. And I'll give you a sports analogy. You're looking at another team you're going to play, and you look at them and say it's basketball, and they're really big, but they're slow. Right? And so you can say to yourself, well, what we could do is if we put a lot of pressure on their guards and we jump on them and we play them really tough man-to-man all over the court, they're going to have a hard time throwing the ball into their big guys and we're quicker than they are. But you might not be very good at defense. That might not be what you do well. So if you're not good at defense, even if you're quicker, and that would be a good strategy, it doesn't mean you can do it. So you have to have the tools, all right, in order to compete. Now, this last one is targeting, all right? And there's 3 basic strategies. And personally, I really think there should only be 2 strategies. And these are less strategies and just more an idea of what your options are, okay? So, in this first one here, we have a graph, and on the vertical axis is price, with a higher price, going vertically up. And on the horizontal axis, we have quality. And the more we go to the right, the further out on the axis, the higher the quality. And, this thing identifies 4 potential segments. And we'll go from low price, low quality, right? Those people, they don't care about the quality, and they just don't want to pay very much. They'll buy the brands on Amazon that they never heard of, and they know they're coming from China, or they're going to buy them at Ocean State Job Lot or Walmart or any place like that. Then the one right above that, high price, low quality, they're willing to accept low quality. It doesn't mean they really want low quality, but they're willing to pay a high price. So a lot of times that means that in this case it'd be, well, as long as it has a good brand name, I'm going to assume it has good quality, even though it's not. So, Apple obviously has high quality, but you might say Sony. Oh, Sony is a really good brand. And you'll see that many times when companies go out of business that have had strong brand names, perhaps their day has passed, other companies will buy the brand names because they still have a good, reputation with people who were around when they were strong. So Polaroid, Polaroid cameras, Kodak. Oh yeah, those are good companies. All right, so they might go for that. Then over in the upper right corner, that's high price, high quality, right? They want the best, they're willing to pay a lot. All right. And then in the lower right corner, you have low price, high quality. Well, those people want really good stuff, but they don't want to pay very much. Right? And you'll notice that the dotted lines are the kind of the centers, the ideal points in the middle of all those segments. So if you were the first one to look at this market and say, hey, look at this market, we can go into this market and there's no competition, where would you go? All right. And you also notice that, the segments really aren't that far apart. They're all kind of congregated, right? And you could, maybe draw one big circle around them and say, hey, that's not really that differentiated. All right. There's one thing. So if I want to go in here, where am I going to go? I'm going to go right in the middle here. So I'm going to make one brand and I'm going to get people from here, here, here. And I'm the first in the marketplace. So this way, I'm going to maximize my sales. I'll get people who, a lot of different customers from all these different places because I have something new. And that's a really common strategy. And it's called, all right, undifferentiated, which is right over here. Okay, so we decide that, given the situation and competition, the differences in the segments that we found or lack of differences, that we're going to come out with one brand and one size fits all. We're just making one product for everybody. And it has some, attractiveness to it, right? It's hard to find and think of, though. All right. So, I don't have any really good examples. I have Prel shampoo and a comma. I'm not sure. They just make one type of shampoo. It's moderately priced. They don't, aim it in one direction and stuff. Not a market leader. All right. But it does occur. Okay. When does it make the most sense? When products are viewed as commodities. Right. Remember, commodities are brands where we say, there isn't really much difference in them. It doesn't really matter. So often price will become important. It could be a new product, and what people want is spread out all over the board, right? Not even a round circle, just dots all over that place. So, you go in one place and wait, all right? Okay, so, and then oftentimes, you're going to get matched by competitors. Now, what are the advantages of doing it undifferentiated? Well, it's the production concept, right? We're just making one brand. Our production costs can go down. We ride that economies of scale, the learning curve, experience curve, so our costs go down. So we're going to end up making more money because our costs are going to go down, and we're going to produce a lot. All right. What's the risk? Well, it's like when we said, people, not a lot of people are willing to admit they buy their jeans at Walmart. All right. And it's not because they're bad quality. It's the name brand. So there are other types of benefits become important. And if that's a relatively new type of brand, we're not really sure what exactly we want. And then things develop and change. And so, but in the beginning, with a new product, a new type of branding out there with, when it's brand new, like EVs, there's not a lot. All right. And then after a while, it's going to change. And marketers, to be competitive, they're not going to go in and copy. They're going to, come up with brands that are different in some way. All right. So that's the first one. All right. So now, same market, but over time, all right, what's happened? People's tastes evolve and they change and their experiences. All right. And so now you still have the same segments, but they've moved and they're more clear on exactly what they want, and the differences between them are larger. So you still have the low price, low quality. All right. Right. They're going to buy it at the dollar store. Right. High price, low quality. They're buying name brands and things like that, but they're not really getting great quality. All right. High price, high quality. They're connoisseurs. They want the best. And then you have low price, high quality. They want the best, but they're not really willing to pay a lot for them. All right. Now, there's a company in the middle. There's nobody here. So they're still drawing sales. All right. They're still getting these sales here. Perhaps, not as much, but they don't have any competition. So as long as the product's remaining pretty popular, it doesn't matter. So if you're the next company, what could you do? What should you do? All right. So you might want to go after this segment because high price, high quality, right? Especially if you can have some lower cost for producing high quality, you can make a lot of money. High price, low quality, that's attractive. So maybe you change your brand name and come out with a different brand for that one, but still the same company, so you don't hurt your high price, high quality image. And you might say, hey, we're going to be producing a lot of these things, so let's go after the low end market. Okay, so this approach is known as multi-segment or differentiated. So multi-segment's a term that most people use nowadays. And again, it's different strokes for different folks. And we go after, the key term is 2 or more market segments. 2 or more. And you don't have to go after all of them, but we say, you know what? Let's go after 3 of them. And now look what's happened. If I was doing this, I would put my, star right on the edge. And now, if you're anywhere in this circle, in one of these circles with a star, the closest brand that meets your needs that you want is the green. All right? And it's definitely more preferable to each of those groups than the red one. So all of a sudden, this guy is in a lot of trouble. He's in the middle of nowhere. So as markets start to grow and change and mature, and customers, learn how to use it and different things that they might want out of it, okay? And as competitors develop new features and benefits, you can't just stay in the middle. It's hard to be in the middle, all right, in most markets and so forth. So multi-segment, right? 2 or more segments, sorry. All right? Different strategies, not the same, right? Most likely to occur because, hey, people, things evolve over time. Things change. You know how rapid, we've talked a lot, how rapid change is. People don't view things the same way, all right? People perceive, right? When people perceive there's meaningful differences in the brand, they are not commodities, then a multi-segment strategy is often warranted if each of those segments is attractive and meets the 5 criteria. Now, the advantage, hey, we're making something tailored to each group, more value, right? We're going to be able to charge more or increase our sales relative to our competitors. All right, we can reach more people. Disadvantage, so we have 3 brands in the marketplace in our example. They're all going to have slightly different advertising. All right, the brands are going to be different. They could be very different. All right, men versus women. All right, they need their own advertising. They need their own marketing. They need their own marketing development. Research and development, and so forth. So it's more expensive. They're all individual. There's not as many economies of scale or ways that you can, lump them together to contain your costs or provide the same benefits. So it's expensive, right? And then, we talked about Bud Light before. Like, okay, so they came out with Bud Light, and that's Bud Light right there in that little picture. It looks just like a Corona bottle to me, right? Clear, right? Green, okay, all that kind of stuff. Now, the question for them is, there's a risk that they could cannibalize their own sales. So if all the Bud Light drinkers, who weren't buying Corona, just switch over to Bud Light, Lime, what did they gain? Nothing, really. They didn't really increase their customer base. And they spent a lot of money developing the brand and then marketing the brand and marketing it to the package stores and supermarkets and other alcohol, beer retailers. Right? Now, if they're able to keep customers who are leaving to go to Corona, that's great. Right? If they could attract Corona buyers and to Bud Light because it's less expensive or they, for whatever reason, then that's good. So you have to be careful because if you're just shifting sales between one brand of yours to another, you're going to end up losing money because there's significant cost to, marketing your brand. Okay, now the last one. All right, so I like bourbon. All right. So here we are, and let's say these are the different types of bourbons, all right? High price, high quality. This really fits for alcohol. High price, low quality. Hey, it's got a good brand name, but it's not one of their better brands. Low price, low quality, I don't care. Heaven Hill, I just want to get drunk. Low price, high quality, not too many people doing that, okay, but some probably trying to a little bit. And then you might have a group that's willing to spend a lot of money, all right, on bourbon, all right, and it's like an outlier. It's very different, and according to the strategy, it tends to be small. So that bottle of bourbon right there, I think, was like $3,500. And I was in Las Vegas a couple of years ago at a bar, in between the Palazzo and the Venetian, at just a restaurant. It was like a southern themed restaurant. We're just getting a drink. And they had shots of bourbon for $300. A shot for $300. Okay? So, if we decided to go after this brand, right? No real competition, right? Not very big in this example, all right? Okay, but there's nobody there, and it's an attractive market with those 5 categories there, and we can feel like we can do well, then we should, all right? And that's called a niche, focus, or concentrated strategy. And we're all in for one segment. So don't get niche, focus, or concentrated, right? Niche is the most common term. Confused with undifferentiated. Undifferentiated, one size fits all. I'm going to make one bourbon for everybody. And then niche is I'm making one bourbon for this segment. All right? And usually niche is a smaller segment because traditionally or over time in the past, companies would find a small group, all right, and smaller companies would find a market segment that the larger companies really weren't interested in too much, and they would go in there because they could afford to market there, and they were less likely to be attacked by larger competitors who were looking for it because it wasn't big enough. So that's what kind of the evolution of niche. Now, do I like it? Niche versus undifferentiated or multi-segment? No, because it's really only based upon the number of segments, right? They're both the same strategy. Make, what the segment wants. Give them their own strategy. Multi-segment just means, hey, we're going to go after 2 or 3, segments in a larger market. Niche means we're only going after 1, all right? So, hey, if we were talking about drones, right, there's commercial drones for businesses, right, and then there's consumer-based drones, and we won't even touch the military, right? So, I will take the military. So we have 3 sets of companies or organizations that buy drones: military, commercial, and consumers. So consumers is by far the smallest. So if we just go after consumers, right, that might be called a niche. But it's really no different than if we went after consumers and commercial, which is a pretty big market because, it's a great tool for companies that, deal with natural resources and other things. And they're going to be delivering, Amazon's going to be delivering stuff to us in drones. They've already tried it and so forth. So there really isn't a difference in my book. But for our test and for everybody else, niche is usually a smaller market. That's the only one you're in. Okay, it's the only segment you're in, where multi-segment means you're in 2 or more. And undifferentiated means, we're going to go after everybody. Okay, so you're probably like a little hazy, so let's go over some examples, okay, after I finish up with niche. All right, it's not one size fits all. Have a specific strategy for one group. So it's like if a company like Razer, and they're probably owned by somebody, but I'm just going to make gaming computers. All right, I wouldn't call it a niche, but that's what that strategy is. All right, I'm going after one segment, all right, for laptops or desktops, gaming computers. All right. So, what are some examples? Well, it's really hard to find undifferentiated. Undifferentiated, right? Morton Salt, Arm & Hammer, baking soda. Do they have any real competitors? Paper clips are probably our competitors, but who cares? Staples, same thing, for staplers. Brown paper lunch bags, at least for us, it doesn't matter who the company is. All right? Maybe the only thing with lunch bags is how big they are. All right? And so forth. Multi-segment strategy, most bigger companies, most common. Right? All car companies, right? Ford makes trucks. They make EVs. They make SUVs, they still make a Mustang and a gas car and so forth, right? Honda, Toyota, Marriott owns like so many different hotel and motel chains. Um, Monster and Energy and Red Bull are interesting. Red Bull is pretty much, they make Red Bull in flavors, kind of like Gatorade. I wouldn't really call those different segments. They make a diet and a zero. They're doing the same thing as Coca-Cola. Monster Energy, they make regular Monster, Java Monster, Ultra Monster, Monster Hydrate, Monster Rehab. So they have many more product brands out there and flavors and varieties. They have a different strategy. Okay, they're both multi-segment. We said before, the Gap owns Banana Republic, Old Navy, Gap, and Baby Gap, and Athleta. All right, multi-segment. Coca-Cola, multi-segment. Anheuser-Busch, multi-segment. Niche. All right, Ferrari, Cabela's, LL Bean. All right, different clothing for different groups, right? DLX, Big Boys. All right, Victoria's Secrets, lingerie, HelloFresh, Blue Apron, meal kits, and so forth. They don't try to do other things, and so forth. So that's niche strategies. So segmentation. All right, look at the market, see if there's meaningful differences, find a way to segment the market to try to uncover a group that's not having their needs met, and that group is big enough for you. If you can find multiple ones, super. All right. Once you find those segments, okay, you have to kind of understand who's in those segments. All right, build personas, develop a profile. Then you have to figure out, okay, which ones do I want to go after, right? Those 5 criteria right there. And then once you kind of look at that, then you come up with your targeting strategy. It's really a description of what your options are. You can say, hey, screw it, there's not enough differences right now, we're going to go after the one. Great. Do we really care so much about paper clips that it's going to really matter? No. We're just going to make the best paper clips that are cheap and get broad distribution. Probably a good strategy. Other things, all right, then we look at the market. Hey, people have different wants and needs. Trucks, trucks are getting segmented. We have full-size trucks. You have, mid-size trucks like Toyota Tacoma, Ford Ranger. And now you have the little trucks, all right, such as a Ford Maverick and Hyundai Santa Cruz, and Toyota's coming out with one based on a Corolla. So they're segmenting the market there, right? And then finally you have niche, right? You make one product for that, right? So if we said sticking with trucks, that's going to be Tesla if they ever really launch their Cybertruck. Right? They only make one type of truck, and so forth. And that's market segmentation. Thank you very much.